Is this the get-right spot for LSU in a night game in Death Valley? Who wins in a battle of strengths between Missouri and Vanderbilt? A MAC game you should absolutely know about this week, and 4 best bets. We will get to all that and a lot more in the next 900 seconds. Bobby, we are on the clock, and we will jump right into the MAC game of the week, Western Michigan at Miami of Ohio. Western Michigan currently catching a point with a total of 41. What you need to know about both these teams, they're both coming in hot. Winners of 4 straight, and both have covered each of those 4 games. Bobby, this is a really tight one. Major implications in the MAC race. Unfortunately, Miami doesn't get the scheduling breaks as they still have to face Toledo, Buffalo, and Ohio. But still a big game nonetheless. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, for years, Chuck Martin and the RedHawks team, they schedule up in the non-conference and usually start 1-3 with an FCS win. And they turn it on when MAC play comes along again. Once they face similar competition, this year they obviously have a dual threat quarterback, Daquan Finn, who actually is a professional level MAC level quarterback,
nice.
Stabilizing the program after Brett Gabbert finally graduated after 1,200 years in Oxford. There, Finn is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and they're going to need that mobility against Western Michigan, who probably has the best defensive front in the league and is like completely underrated nationally as well. Luckily for Miami, the reason why they've been consistent in the MAC over the last couple of years under Chuck Martin is that they've been really good in the trenches, and they usually have that advantage against the rest of the league, and could potentially neutralize a bit of the Broncos on that side of the ball. When on the other side, while Western Michigan defense has been spectacular, the offense sputters quite a bit. It's inconsistent, right, relying on a ton on Brock Lowry in the QB run game. The defenses we've seen give Miami Ohio fits this year. I would consider more on the explosive passing side with better athletes, something that Western Michigan doesn't have here. This is a low total. I lean to the under here. I do like it above 40, at 41 or better a little bit. We got 2 really slow teams. Miami of Ohio is historically very conservative, especially in a tight game like this. They will punt on 4th and short in Western Michigan territory. Both defenses are excellent in forcing 3rd and longs, and I question whether both passing attacks can convert in those spots. In terms of the side, I do like Miami of Ohio a little bit. MAC home field isn't very large with how regional the league is. It's very much like a bus ride league with this. So with the current market, it implies on a neutral, these teams are about even. I disagree with that. So I like Miami here. I think this line should be closer to 3 as they have a little bit of a special teams edge as well in this one.
SEC Battle of the Week, Game of the Week. Battle of 2 teams with amazing run strengths. So, Bobby, this one really comes down to, can this Missouri team, which is a short road dog, catching 2.5, total of 53.5, can they get the stops against a Vanderbilt team that wants to run the ball? And can Vanderbilt get those stops against a Missouri team that wants to run the ball? How do you see this game playing out, and maybe which defense can actually get a stop?
Yeah, again, we have 2 run-first teams and probably what is my favorite power conference game of the week, which I wouldn't have thought I said that to start the year. This game is very much like the Spider-Man meme, I think, a little bit, just pointing at each other. Vandy continues to press, and I think they're absolutely legit in terms of their ranking. Like that's a quality football team there. They have great rush defensive metrics, but in SEC play, they played Alabama, LSU, and South Carolina, all teams that struggle quite a bit running the ball. And LSU and Alabama actually had one of their best rushing performances of their seasons against the Commodores. Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts, Bro Pubula, they've been great and consistent in the run game all season. I expect that success to continue here. What will be interesting is how Missouri attacks through the air, as Vandy has been susceptible to the explosive pass and being attacked downfield, but that's not something that Mizzou has done at all this season. So it'd be interesting if they are able to do that and create that balance. I think it could open up things down the field. And on the other side, every time we bring up Mizzou, we talk about that defense, but they've had a beneficial schedule as well. The only real offenses they've played are Kansas and Alabama, and both and Missouri can be thrown on. And we saw that even in the South Carolina game. Lenore Sellers was able to take advantage there, and of course with Alabama as well a few weeks back. Pavia and their down-to-down success should help them open up the passing lanes when Vandy does decide to pass. Yep. Pace might not be here, but I do think, as kind of mentioned here, the offenses can succeed here. So I actually lean over the total at current, below 55. It's not that big of a numbers edge, but like I said, that's a lean. I did pizza bet some Missouri 3 as I think it's just a coin flip. But I wouldn't play that at the market at 2.5 though. Over is the stronger lean here.
In our People's Choice Game 1 of the week, where you can vote each and every Tuesday at our CFB900 Twitter page, BYU, the short road dog at Iowa State. This was our best bet on Sunday. We're getting some market agreement. We're also starting to see some 3. The current total is 49.5. We did touch on this game a bit on Sunday, but Bobby, could you break this one down a little bit deeper?
Yeah, so this is, I think, the first time we've broken down a game after we gave out a best bet on it. With giving this out Sunday night and doing it here tonight. So it was Iowa State -2, and we gave it out. We've seen it now move to 2.5. You saw some threes, a lot of threes yesterday, and to no surprise, I'll admit that I'm not surprised that those were taken out a little bit. The thing is this is a fantastic situational spot for the Cyclones. They're coming off a bye. BYU coming off the Holy War. So in terms of the game's matchup here, Iowa State's run defense has been just average. And BYU, again, like we talked about last week in the Utah game, LJ Martin, that offensive line, they're fantastic. Iowa State has some cluster injuries in the secondary, and I think that their run defense numbers are a little bit due to them having to allocate resources in order to try to stop the pass with those clusters injuries. A BYU team that I don't know can really take advantage of that. So With the bye, I expect ISU to be a little bit healthier, hopefully, and be able to call the defense in a way that helps slow down that ground attack a little bit. On the other side, Iowa State's running game, something we've criticized for the last couple of years here, has gotten a little bit more on the ground from Abu Sama, Chris Hansen, last couple of games that we saw Utah have success last week against the Cougs. If Iowa State can replicate that success, I think it can open up the pass for Rocco Beck, to QB, who I like a lot, who's been putting this team on his back with all the turnover and the receiving core that he's had, making explosive plays in the passing game despite the loss of 2 NFL receivers last year. And that's something that BYU has done to opposing passing attacks. I wouldn't bet it if it gets to 3, but I still do like it below the 2.5 with Iowa State playing a little bit of the situational spot with the Cyclones.
People's Choice Game number 2, Texas A&M, the short road favorite at LSU in a night game in Death Valley with a total of 49.5. Notable to some other people, not really to me, but I'll mention it anyways. Brian Kelly, 19-1 in night games in Death Valley. Texas A&M, probably this is the highest market price we could see them at. But I think we did see some 3, and they already got balled up, so most likely this game will never close 3. Bobby, the Texas A&M offense has looked awesome. The defense just gave up 42 points to Arkansas. They obviously gave up 40 points on the road against Notre Dame. 2 really, really good offenses. But is this a game where maybe Texas A&M on the road's a little bit different defensively, where they did catch some offensively challenged teams at home like Auburn and Mississippi State, and now they're going to face an LSU team back against the wall. Everything's out there. There's no season left if LSU can't get this one right.
You just touched on a couple great points of the handicap right there. But yeah, this is another situational spot with LSU, with them being a rare underdog to a team not called Alabama in Baton Rouge at night here. Right. Personally, we were really early to that. Hey, A&M might be really good, and maybe Marcel Reese has turned a corner. But also, simultaneously, we've been a little bit slow to react to LSU's offense being just flat out broken. Weird to call 24 points as a little bit of a sign of life, but I thought we saw a little bit of glimpses last week with LSU against Vandy, putting up top 3rd percentile performances in EPA per play, yards per play dropback, EPA per rush. Where the Tigers were undone here was finishing drives when they crossed the 50 on the first 6 drives of the game, and they attempted 4 field goals in that one, making 3. But they were able to finally move the ball with some success against Vandy last week. This side of the ball is going to come down to the very unimpressive LSU offensive line. Can they get push against an A&M defensive line who's just okay in rush defense, but very good at rushing the passer? We've seen the Aggies defense give up points in a few spots this year, specifically on the road, as you mentioned, and giving up the explosive play. It will be interesting to see if LSU can exploit that and break through here and stay in manageable down and distance, something they'll need to do here with that elite pass rush. On the LSU defensive side, we saw them have their worst performance of the season against Vandy. as they were efficient down to town in all facets, broke a few explosives as well. The A&M ground game, something we mentioned, I believe, in the Notre Dame game early in the year, they were a little bit slow starting to begin the year, but they've really improved and really helping Marcel Reed maintain manageable down and distance throws and not just be a 3-and-out or explosive home run strikeout type offense. At the end of the day, I see the case for LSU, especially when it briefly touched 3 earlier in the week, would not get there at 2.5. I'll be on the sidelines on the side here on this one. Where I do lean here is I do think the over here is potentially a good play. I think we're seeing warts in both defenses as we see them play better and more complete offenses. Slight progress in the LSU defense or offense, as we mentioned. And I think with balance, that A&M offense can create some explosives. Haven't got to the window and actually placing it, but that would be my lean in this one.
Yeah, you touched on it. We've seen the market tick up on this one towards the over. Makes a lot of sense with the game state. A&M's going to need to keep scoring. It's obviously the best side of their ball, and then LSU, man, they gotta keep scoring to just hang in there, knowing that A&M's offense is explosive. This is also a Marcel Reed quarterback that just destroyed this LSU team in the second half of last year's game. That's got to be top of mind for Blake Baker and the defense. How can we contain this guy? So will be an awesome one to watch. With that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the market, where we have seen a lot of movement since we last met with you guys on Sunday. Bobby, where do you want to get started first?
We'll start at the top, 123, 124, Baylor, Cincinnati. This was one that I almost gave out on Sunday, actually, liking Baylor here. But we've seen that number come down from 5.5 to 3.5. I thought that was expensive on Cincinnati. Do like Baylor in the game a little bit. Obviously, a very high total here, but definitely agree with that move on the Baylor Bears here in this one, as I think that was probably that price of the opener was probably market high on Cincinnati on that one. 145, 146, SMU Wake Forest. This one has crashed since the opener. I think there are some higher openers, like in the 5.5, 6 range. Now we're looking at a number that in some spots is below 3. I agree with the move off the situational spot. SMU has not impressed me at all this season. And so I think this could be a spot for the Demon Deeks here. 161, 162, Auburn, Arkansas. We've seen money on Arkansas here, and quite a bit come in today. Yeah. I know that opened around pick, maybe Arkansas plus a little bit here, but now we're almost out to 2.5 in this one.
It was a Sunday morning coffee play. We had Arkansas the short money line. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Market agreement there. Interesting push-pull on the total here with Auburn not being able to score on anyone except Baylor, actually. And Arkansas's good offense. Again, like if Jackson Arnold isn't going to, if he's splitting reps with Ashton Daniels, I actually think that might be an upgrade. Maybe that's an overlook depending on what happens with the quarterback situation there.
Let me ask you, historically, when you get teams like this where Arkansas is hot and cold, obviously offense runs hot, defense is terrible. Auburn is like the whole total, 180, right? Their defense is hot, their offense is cold. How do these games historically play out? I mean, I got to think Arkansas at home with Bobby Petrino, they're going to try to score a lot of points, but surely Auburn's going to actually score some points here, considering that Hugh Freeze wants to score points, and this is an Arkansas defense that can certainly give them up. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't have the exact historical, trends on that one of what happens when two polar opposites play. But yeah, I do think there could be some opportunities for the Auburn offense here, especially if Daniels plays, because I did like him a bit at Stanford. He just had issues like staying healthy at times. But yeah, I think with how bad that Arkansas defense is, obviously Petrino wants the job and is going to kind of go all out to try to score as many points as possible. And obviously that's frees some motivation there as well. But this is one where I'd wait on the news, wait till 11, wait till right before kick before you play anything. And maybe, quite frankly, it's a good old game. Quite frankly, I don't know if I would touch you got the early Arkansas money line, but like at current, I think this is something where you find a plus alternate of some kind that you like and go attack it that way.
Makes sense.
Continuing down the board, 187, 188, Bama, South Carolina. You're finally seeing what should be a letdown spot for Alabama off 4 consecutive big games.
Right.
Traveling to South Carolina here. We've seen some South Carolina money, 13.5 openers. Now we're down to 12.5, 11. That's what that movement is there. Right below it, 189, 190. South Florida, Memphis. Obviously, we talked about Lewis, the quarterback for Memphis, being questionable. Not sure of his status. We're still not sure of his status. He was seen in a walking boot last week after the injury. But there was a service release today on USF at the -5. So while we don't have any official word, I think the market seeing 6s here is telling us something. If you catch my drift here, 197, 198, Houston, Arizona State. This total's been up and down. Tyson, the fantastic wide receiver for Arizona State, he's going to be out here. He's obviously huge to the Sun Devil offense here. So a little bit confused by the over money that came in this afternoon. But I like under here, maybe specifically the Arizona State team total, even though like the Houston can be got in the secondary, but I just don't know if Arizona State can take advantage of that in this one. 201, 202, Toledo, Wazoo. Again, another one where we've seen the total come down a ton. And then right below it, 203, 204, Georgia Southern, Arkansas State. Confusing under money for me here as well. I think these are two of the worst teams defensively, and not only just in the Sun Belt, but in the country. I think this total should be a bit higher on that one. But that was a move. I actually saw like 2 waves on that earlier today. I'm not sure what's going on. I'll just be honest. I have no idea. I make it a bit higher here on that one. But that is the current market.
That is the week 9 market. But Bobby, there is a week 10 market available at FanDuel. And there was a game what we were discussing earlier today, and that game is Penn State at Ohio State. What we all thought earlier this year would be a market game of the week. Now it's kind of a flat spot. However, we do like this under 47.5. We think this one might be aligned just a little bit too high. Bobby, can you kind of walk us through a little bit why we're thinking that this game most likely will reopen Sunday, maybe after it takes a little bit of money? This game should be closer to 45, 44.5.
Yeah, I think 45 makes a bit more sense here. I just don't think Ohio State's really mastered like the load management part of college football, where they're beating teams comfortably, but not putting themselves in any danger. I think this is going to be one where 31-14 kind of range makes more sense, somewhere around there in terms of the implied. I was a little surprised by that total earlier today. Obviously, we've seen Penn State be downgraded nearly 2 touchdowns in market, which I think makes sense. And that one I was surprised by, and a similar call out here that we made just on Twitter to that Florida-Texas game a few weeks back. That would say closed a bit well, and we got very fortunate, whereas the number we talked about won, and all those later numbers did not in that one. But yeah, that was an interesting one, and figured one we'd call it on the show a little bit today. Not something we'll put in the best bet column or anything.
Right, absolutely not.
Definitely a look ahead we like.
But definitely trying to get the audience wins when we can get them.
Yeah.
Before we move on to best bets, guys, if you don't mind, please give Bobby and I like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Spotify or iTunes, please click that 5-star button. It really means a lot to Bobby and I that you guys not only listen, but we very much appreciate and value your feedback. So, Bobby, we gave out Iowa State -2 on Sunday night. We have 4 best bets coming up right now. We like Mississippi State team total under 18.5 against Texas. Bobby, can you walk us through not just this number, but why we give out 18.5 and not 19.5?
Yep. So obviously with this being Thursday, not Wednesday this week, some team total markets are open. DK, FanDuel, MGM, Caesars, they all have team total markets open, as we debated if this would be something fair we could give out here. FanDuel, Caesars has some 19.5 minus 115 out. We're going to officially grade it 18.5 out of fairness here, and just make sure that anyone can kind of get this thought on Thursday this was widely available enough to give out here. as far as why we're playing it, I compared this a little bit to the A&M game for Mississippi State. I think they're going to be playing with a lot of pace and just running into a brick wall in the Texas defense.
Right.
And obviously they're going to be able to stop it here. So I do like Texas in the game a little bit, but I see Mississippi State having a really hard time scoring here.
Best bet, North Carolina State plus 6.5 against Pitt. We like the Wolfpack here.
Yep, Wolfpack off a bye here. I think that's going to help them prepping for the new freshman quarterback for Pitt, and help CJ Bailey and this offense get back on track after crashing out a little bit before the bye. I think Pitt is a little bit overrated, and we've seen they've faced a few teams in fortunate spots this season. Boston College, Syracuse, obviously the back quarterback, and we're able to kind of take advantage of that. I like NC State here, and I think they're live in this one.
Ball State plus 6, another best bet for us. This is one we've actually waited on, and we're getting the best of the numbers so far available in the market. This is one that's definitely confused me, and I've voiced that concern to Bobby as far as how do we think Northern Illinois is actually going to get margin against a quality Ball State team? I don't think they do. Bobby, can you tell us more about this one?
Yep, and we began the podcast in the MAC, and we're going to end the podcast, the return of the MAC here. Ball State plus 6. I think it's just really hard to see an NIU team create margin against Ball State, especially as a big favorite here. Low total again here. I make this closer to 3. I expect Ball State to be able to run here with Kyle Kelly at quarterback. So they think this one should be lower, low total, hard to create margin. I like the Cardinals here.
Our last best bet of tonight, Ohio and Eastern Michigan over 58.5. We've seen a little bit of tug of war. This was one I played earlier in the week at over 58.5. It got as high as I think 60.5. Came back down to 58.5. It's great for us to give this out as a best bet.
Yeah, this is honestly when we started diving into totals this week. This was honestly one of my favorite ones. One of my favorite bets on the board, honestly. 2 clear over teams in MAC play, and I think some of these totals in the MAC kind of get suppressed because there are so many like bad quarterbacks and inefficient teams in this
league. A lot of Western Michigans and a lot of Miamis.
Yeah, playing at teams like NIU, Central Michigan, Ball State, suppressing this total a little bit here. I expect both QBs, Parker Navarro, Noah Kim, to have success through the air. And another thing to look at in October, as we mentioned before, no weather threat in Ypsilanti this week, like 3-mile-per-hour winds, beautiful, like 50-degree day up there on that ugly gray field.
You can follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyDigital2. You can follow the show on Twitter at CFB900. Bobby and I will be back here Sunday night breaking down everything that happened in Week 9, looking ahead to Week 10. We'll have a couple best bets for you guys. Wishing you guys nothing but the absolute best of luck tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. Bobby and I will see you back here Sunday night. Until then, best of luck. Adios.